Welcome back to Beyond Stereo, the Dolby Atmos podcast. I'm Dan Bucknell, and here we talk about the world of immersive technologies aimed at creating more meaningful and emotional experiences for music, film, and just about everything else. Today's guest is Alex Gamble, a seasoned mixing engineer with experience working with labels and artists across the globe, including FKA Twigs, Envy of None, Gucci Mane, and Alex Warren, just to name a few. Please welcome Alex Gamble. Well, thanks so much for jumping on with me today, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem at all. So if you'd like to just quickly introduce yourself and what you do and how you sort of got into things, and then just let our viewers know what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Alex Gamble. I am a professional audio mixer specializing in mixing music in stereo and Dolby Atmos. I'm based in Toronto, Canada at a studio called Union Sound Company. I got into this field over the course of a decade and change. When I first sort of entered professional audio, I was straight out of an audio school in Vancouver, Canada. Eventually got brought on here to actually intern at the studio that I'm mixing at right now.
That's cool.
Yeah, the first opportunity I had in my career was interning at this space, and the studio wasn't actually even built yet when I showed up. It was still kind of a idea in the conception phase, and they had started building it and they knew what it wanted to be. And so I showed up as an intern and hoping I would get to start turning knobs or at least making coffee. But next thing you know, he said, here's a hammer, here's a saw, can you help?
Oh wow, get to work.
Yeah, pretty much. It was a cool experience though, to get to see what actually goes into putting up the walls of a place like this was pretty informative. It's my first experience out of audio school, right?
Yeah, wow, that's pretty cool to start like that, I suppose, because I mean, building our own studios and things, that sort of comes into it at some point. You're gonna
for sure
do that, but straight out of the gate, you're building and
just building studios.
That's crazy.
I mean, the design was done by a person named John Brandt, who sent the designs in.
I know John.
Oh yeah, he's great. Does
awesome.
Amazing work. And so he sent the designs in, and then we hired local contractors, did a bunch of the work ourselves, and a bunch of other people from the music community even to say, hey, do you want to come in, swing a hammer, or do this one thing that you specialize in? We'll give you some free studio time when the space opens up. And so It kind of became a real community-led effort that way. But I definitely got thrown into the center of it as, just coming straight out of audio school looking for opportunities, and found out about this. And rest is kind of history. I worked as an intern and then eventually an assistant engineer here for probably the first 5 years, roughly, of it being open. Freelanced for a bit after that, and went into my own studio space that I was sharing with another producer, and
cool.
Which it was really great. It was an awesome space called Raven Tape Music Room, and it kind of opened up in various locations and various forms over the course of those 5 years that I was freelancing.
I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, so it was myself and Robbie Grunwald, who was the other producer. We're kind of the two main people involved in that. It's an awesome space, still up and running. Robbie's still there doing great work. There's another engineer there named Bo Cassidy who also does some really great work. And it was the first space I actually outfitted with Dolby Atmos 4 years ago. And that's kind of what first brought me into the Atmos world, was getting that space up and running with it. And it still is up and running with that. But demand just got a little crazy for it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It ended up being a good decision to get into it because it gave me the opportunity to get my name out into places where it wasn't before and get to work on some pretty amazing projects. And it just wasn't enough for me to be getting half the studio time. I just needed a place where I could really make home base. So called up the people that first brought me to Toronto and then said, hey, what about that room on the side that I built for you guys 10 years ago?
And now I can see obviously that's Atmos as well.
Yeah, so it wasn't when I moved into it. I moved in here, re-moved in here, I guess, last November. And, renting the room, it's just basically a blank room with treatment. So I had to bring in all my own equipment, set it up how I wanted it. And, building studios 10 years ago, nobody was thinking about Dolby Atmos. People were barely thinking about surround.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
Except maybe the post houses, like it's
Post
probably
houses,
been-
exactly.
Yeah, but
But,
for music, not at all.
Union is definitely a music focused studio for sure.
Yeah, right.
So it wasn't really much of a thought at the time. Luckily, I still had old phone dump pictures from 10 years ago showing what the room looked like without the treatment on the walls, and what's underneath here and where the studs are and all that sort of stuff. So I could reference that.
Very
and be like,
handy.
oh yeah, if I take that panel off, I could just thread that wire down there, and so it's. So yeah.
That's a perfect full circle moment then, I guess, to be able to
For sure.
sort of realize where you came from, and then rebuild it for the purposes of now. With the Dolby Atmos stuff, like obviously, I mean, I live and breathe this. You clearly live and breathe this as well. We've both
sure.
got a hand in that. It's such a huge thing to build a studio, just even in stereo. And
Oh, yeah.
John will talk about all of the acoustic stuff. Like that's his field, and I've actually talked to him about jumping on the podcast as well. So he might do that a little later, but. Yeah, like in general, mixing in Atmos is so different, as we know, to how stereo even works. Just so many more speakers in the room, so much more energy moving around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did you change anything in the acoustics for that room? Because if it was designed for stereo, then it may not necessarily have been exactly what you might have done for Atmos these days. So what was different about, when you brought your gear in? What else did you need to do?
In terms of the acoustics, I didn't change a ton of what was going on in here. This room is already like pretty dampened and pretty dead. Like when you walk in here
Cool.
and close the door, it really
You feel it.
You
Yeah.
feel it. The air sucks out. In that sense, I didn't have to change a ton. Like one challenge I came up against when I was outfitting Raven Tape, it was very designed for stereo. It was that very classic,
Right.
like live, sort of more active, like reflective zone where your speakers are, and then a more dead zone in the back of the room, which is great for stereo.
Yeah.
what
Do they
I-
have like a wooden floor kind of thing where your chair is? Is that the idea? Or
Yeah,
things like that.
Yeah, there's a wooden floor throughout, kind of some carpeting laid down strategically to whatever sounded best. But
Right.
I mean, in that room, though, one of the challenges we had, though, is the treatment was kind of asymmetrical, where it was like alive in one zone and dead in one zone. So the way that the sound felt at the front of the room versus the back of the room was a bit more drastic.
Yeah.
When you moved your head around and moved your body around and walked around the room, you were getting like really way different experiences. Whereas in this room, it was already like, I mean, it's just packed with treatment. Like there's just so much.
Do you know how thick those walls are?
The front wall, I mean, well, the corners kind of fan out and angle out, and it's literally packed with insulation. Like it's a gigantic bass trap. In terms of like how thick the treatment is, I mean, from where the drywall is to what you can see in here, the thickest it probably gets is, I don't know, 2.5, 3 feet. Like it's pretty thick.
That's pretty
The
thick.
the side walls is pretty much just one layer of that yellow rigid insulation. So there's
Yeah,
less going on there. So it depends on which part of the room you're looking at. And then in the ceiling, it's just big corner traps that span like the perimeter of the room basically. So
Yeah, and they're kind of they're a cool shape too. I'll put the video in of that now. Those clouds, they look really, really good.
oh yeah, it's
Just
great.
the
I mean,
look.
the room sounds amazing, and kind of happy accident that they went for more of that like symmetrical, same treatment on the sides, same treatment on both the front and back kind of thing, because I find
Yes.
that more symmetrically treated room is a bit better for Dolby Atmos, because
I agree.
all the
Yeah,
speakers kind of end up with very similar surfaces behind them to reflect
Yeah.
off of, or not in this case.
Absolutely, and that's such a huge part of it, because it really should feel like each speaker is just sort of another speaker rather than a completely different sound.
Yeah.
Like you should be able to pan something wherever and it sort of sounds the same. Obviously sonically different because of the location, which we'll
sure.
get to that. There's plenty to go on with that. But
Definitely.
yeah, like it shouldn't change drastically because of the room. So,
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
And in this room, it was nice to, again, happy accident because it wasn't planned this way, but just like with the way that the room is laid out, I was very like able to get that kind of what they call equidistant setup with the speakers. which I think makes a big difference in terms of getting your stuff to translate in headphones, AirPods, and that sort of thing.
Of course.
I think those listening experiences are designed to emulate that kind of speaker configuration, and that's definitely what I got going on in here. Also,
right.
it's just a mixing room. Like other rooms I've been in, when I'm sharing with another producer, they might have different goals for what they want to do in the room. So Robbie, for example, amazing keyboard player. He's got his own solo album out, but he also does keyboards on lots of amazing artists around town, session playing, producing, that sort of thing. So he needs to have all his gear around to be able to do that. And he's got this awesome vintage synth collection, modern synth collection. He had this really cool old upright Steinway piano in the room. So that stuff was awesome, but I never used it. I was just mixing. And so I had to kind of put the speakers around that gear. And whereas in here, it's just a mixing room. I can put them wherever I want.
So also very purposeful.
It meant that, going into this phase of my career, I really did have to buy into the idea of specializing in mixing, because I was doing a lot more producing and recording in that space. But I enjoy the mixing a lot more. I'm getting asked to do it a lot. And I just thought moving in here, it's like, okay, this is a chance to really zero in on something. And, just get good at that, instead of building a Pro Tools template that can mix, it can record, there's production templates and all this sort of stuff. It's just like, no, I get in here, I've got one template for mixing. So that's what I do now. And just really streamline that.
Yeah, totally. And the other thing about streamlining is just with that room, there's so many other things that also happen when you sort of decide to go down sort of one way of thinking, right?
For sure.
And we've spoken about this briefly before this, that, when you have all this gear in the room, the more things in the room, it's going to change the sound.
For sure.
And you have, I guess, a bit of a story about that, going from, say, an analog world to mainly digital. And I'd love to hear more about that, because I've had a very similar experience as well. But yeah, what was the idea behind that?
Yeah, I've been on both sides of the analog versus digital spectrum, and I think it is a spectrum. A lot of people like to have the argument of it's analog is better, digital is better, and people just coming into this field, you hear these people having these conversations and they think it's a choice of one or the other. It's not.
Yeah.
You can have a little bit of both. Starting at Union Sound, so there's this room here, which is a mix room. But there's also a mastering engineer who's got his own room here, who's been here since day one. And there's also a tracking facility just down the hallway. It's one of the best tracking facilities in Canada, in my opinion. It's got a vintage Neve 8014 console with original 1073s in it.
Wow.
Original Pultecs, original LA2s, original Blue Stripe 1176s, you name it. Every UA plugin that you drooled over, they have the real thing.
That's
incredible. No clones in that room. It goes down to the microphones and everything. Great room for tracking. Lots of isolation. So, bring in a band or a drum kit or whatever, you're going to get a great sound. And so I had to learn that gear. That's where I started, is analog front end with classic gear. So I know what that stuff sounds like.
That's not a bad thing in any stretch. That is awesome, and the pristine, top end of the industry to be able to use that kind of equipment. So that's cool.
Yeah, that stuff. If you're not getting a good sound, it's absolutely your fault. It's not the gear.
100%. Exactly right.
I just want to preface everything I say by saying that I know what that stuff sounds like. I know what it does, and it does great things, like tracking drums through a Neve console. You hear so many people sort of fantasize over what that might be like. It's everything and more. It's really a great sound. And then even with mixing, when I first started taking this more seriously, my first approach into it was, okay, I want to get a summing bus. I want to get some nice stuff on a master bus that's analog. I went through different summing mixers. I've used the Rupert Neve Design summing mixers. I've used the SSL summing mixer. all this amazing outboard gear. I even, ran a analog tape machine for a little while on my mixes. I had a whole system figured out where I'd show up at the beginning of the day. I would align the tape machine so that it was like down to like 0.1 of a decibel, of where it was the day before, so that I could recall a mix and just spin tape, and mixes would be running through tape in real time.
That's beautiful.
Done all that
That's
stuff.
an art form just there.
It's own, yeah. I mean,
it's its own thing.
I was really fortunate that I went to an audio school that really they taught you all that stuff. It was awesome.
That is cool.
It was this cool school in Vancouver called Nimbus. It's not there anymore now, but it was an awesome experience when I was there. I mean, they really got beyond the philosophy of like you got to know where you've been to know where you're going. And so even though most people that graduated there wouldn't have ever gone into a studio with a tape machine, I still tried to absorb the knowledge and learn that stuff and try it for myself in my own workflows. And the stuff sounds really, really great. Like when you really nail it and get that stuff right. Over time though, I was noticing, for whatever reason, whether it's just like deadlines being tighter or just me wanting to be in the moment or something, the analog gear just kept getting less and less part of my workflow. And there were so many times where like, I would do a mix, I maybe would start in the box, for example, and then I'd be like, okay, let's start adding the analog gear. But then I would start, printing mixes before I add the analog gear. And sometimes the digital mix would be better. Sometimes the analog mix would be better. But it was never because of the gear. When I really just honestly listened to it, one was better than the other, and it didn't really matter in the end what tool you used to get it there.
That's a key concept right there. Yeah.
Another thing was happening, I found, to my listening when I was using lots of analog gear. I was using a lot of mental bandwidth to, get the gear set up, to see, visually see the needles moving with the compressors and things like that. And that stuff is, fun and exciting as an engineer to get your hands on the gear and turn the knobs and all that. For myself, personally, I think I've landed at a place now where I've realized that sometimes I was making it sound better, but a lot of the times I was so fixated on getting to play with the gear that it kind of distracted me from the important part of all this, which is just straight up listening. Now, that's not to say that digital is better than analog. Let me just be clear on that. What I'm trying to say is that I've gotten to know myself over the years and I produce better results when there's fewer distractions around. Other people might be, do better in those situations and be able to really deeply focus on the listening while still having these racks of gear around that are going crazy and, being able to juggle in their head, okay, is this one working? Does this one have a broken tube? Like, is this one like hotter on the left than it is on the right? I've got a pretty good analytical mind. I've got a good problem-solving mind, but still, that extra bandwidth that I was putting into those considerations was taking bandwidth away from the listening. That's my theory anyways.
That makes a lot of sense. I feel like the same because I've had a very similar situation. I had a console. It was actually very similar to this setup here. It's just as soon as I got to Atmos, it became just a no-brainer to change this workflow.
Sure.
But before this, it was mainly music, and then I had an analog console, had a bunch of cool gear, and I was stoked with that. And it was really to just see how far I could push it in a home studio. That was kind of the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I want to learn about patch base, so I'll start doing that. And then I want to learn about this. Then it was my own version of school,
Yeah.
And I did go to a uni for a year here, but then was sort of taken out of that into the industry and then kind of missed bits and pieces. So I kind of filled up my own understanding of it. And that was super fun. But the thing is, it became too much time that I was spending, exactly what you said, setting it all up and making sure it all works and keeping it all going. And it's like the idea is gone. Like it's like I forgot what I was doing even. It's like I've
For sure.
put this in here and I've plugged this in here and that sounds cool there and that looks like there's too many things going on.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel guilty agreeing because it makes us sound maybe lazy or something, but at the same time, creativity, it just comes when it comes and then it's gone.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. I think the whole point of all this gear is really, and again, it's not to say that it's not worth it and great for some people if they like that workflow. Awesome. That's so cool. And that's, like you said, where we've been. And there's something to say about that. Like it is certainly beautiful and an art form in its own right. But I just find that the whole purpose for doing what I'm doing is like, no matter what piece of gear, I have an intention that I'm trying to do. That has to be paramount, but before how.
100%.
And then the idea is we're always trying to work out how to do this easier, faster, more accurate, recallable, all those things that analog kind of is way harder to do. The plugins are so good now. Like it's, you kind of,
for sure.
If I could be just in the box completely, I would be. you know? And I pretty much am for post and Atmos.
Man, yeah, like and that's the thing, like it's not like the gap between hardware and plugins is like this humongous thing like it was, even when I got into the industry 10 years ago. I mean, now there's plugins that just hardware can't possibly do. Look at a tool like Soothe, for example. Like there's no hardware that really does that. In fact, now I'm finding other plugin manufacturers are making their version of Soothe. So now Soothe is like the plugin that the other plugins are emulating.
Like plugin clones of other plugins.
Yeah, we've entered that phase now when it comes to these tools.
Cool. Yeah. Honestly, they're all quite affordable too. Like you don't have to spend heaps of money on a huge plugin suite, and even the ones that come in. Like even just the Pro Tools update from just a month ago. Like that is insane in the things it comes with.
For sure.
Even Splice and things like that are integrated into the DAW now. Like you just don't need to go crazy with all the extras necessarily. And even I'm mainly in Logic, as I said, and before. So I don't think I was recording when I said that, but anyway, being in Logic mainly, even the stuff that's stock in all of that, it's all quite awesome and usable.
And Logic comes with a lot. I'm really
awesome.
Impressed by the offering that Logic has.
It's
a great,
particularly the VSTs and all the instruments and stuff as well. But even just for like I mix post Dolby Atmos full feature films in Logic. Everyone tells me I'm crazy for doing that, but
wow.
I prefer it.
Wow.
There's only a couple little things that I would probably want that probably no one else wants. So like they're not going to change it, and that's okay.
Sure.
It's good at being what it is. But in terms of like digital versus the analog thing, I very much agree with what you're saying. There's a place for it, but for me, I just find it faster and easier to get that thing I'm going for.
Definitely, it definitely is that. And for me, like when I took the gear away, I became less attached to what I was using and
what it looks like
and what it looks like and things like that. It was weird. Sometimes I felt an obligation to use certain pieces of gear because they were nice and expensive. That's stupid.
Yeah.
That's stupid to say, and it's stupid to do too. It like, I hope there's some engineers out there who are hearing this and it's striking a chord, because I do feel weird saying it sometimes, but for me, that just was absolutely true. Getting rid of all that stuff has helped me to be a lot more objective about what, when I hear a sound, understanding what the sound needs and just doing what needs to be done and not being attached to, certain techniques that I like to use. It's not about enjoying the technique that you're employing. It's about choosing the right technique for the moment. I'm just doing that a lot better in this environment. And so all that to say, I mean, the studio is about as digital as it gets. Like I plugged in this microphone today, and that's one of two analog cables in the whole room. The other one is connecting my focal headphones, and that's it.
Wow. So everything else is digital, even to the speakers.
Even to the
like
speakers. So my interface is a Digital Audio Denmark AX Center. It's just shooting out a single MADI cable at the back of it, which is fanning out to AES Digital, and that goes to all my speakers. So I've got a 914 of Genelex, and then I've got two PMCs behind me, and they all take AES inputs. And I just thought that was the cleanest way to get to them, because if I go analog out, then I'm converting D to A to go to an analog
and even
cable.
that has a small variance in sound.
That, and then it's A to D into the speaker, and then D to A again coming out of the speaker's DSP chip. So
yeah, you're right.
Literally everything is ones and zeros until it is coming out of a speaker.
That's amazing.
So yeah, there's there's more Ethernet cables running behind the walls than there are XLRs.
Actual audio. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, mostly I would say in my room, my on the way in is where my analog happens. So that's it. So I've got a couple of cool preamps, and most of them are clones, but I love them. The warm audio stuff is great. I really like it.
For sure. And I mean, that's a great place to get your analog flavors on the front end. Like if you know what you're doing with that stuff, that's a great place to like impart your color. And I'm a big I love digital for mixing right now, but at the same time, when I do record, I don't do as much of it now, but I do it often. When I do record, like I'm a big proponent of the idea of just commit on the way in. Like I find like the sooner you can hear your idea being very close to finish, the better the whole process is going to be. Like if you build a foundation that sounds like a finished record, you're not going to...
Mixing's a lot easier.
Mixing becomes easier. Figuring out how you want to overdub things and how you want to produce the track is way more clear. Like I've seen so many new producers run into some weird situations where they're just add because they don't think the production is done yet. But actually, like, your drums just didn't sound right. Like you should have maybe taken like a half hour out and mixed your drum tracks a little bit, or just recorded them better on the way in. And then
fix
you
it
would
in pre, not post.
Exactly. If you build a solid foundation, then it's just like, okay, that's the drum sound for the record. Now what are we going to build on top of this drum sound that we love, instead of trying to mask it with all these like special effects and overdubs and things like that? And then you just kind of end up with a mess of tracks that
and a billion plugins that are all just undoing things, not actually adding.
Yeah, exactly. So, that said, I mean, when I'm talking about this, I'm talking specifically about where I'm at right now in my mixing career. With recording. I love the idea of using analog. Whenever I do it down the hall in Union's tracking room, and they got the real deal stuff, and I'm just using way less plugins and processing power when I eventually bring the mix into here.
That's amazing. That's the way to do it. I mean, I would say that's the goal anyone should probably have, just as a golden standard. Yeah. You can sort of do whatever you want, but at the same time, I just feel that is the strongest approach, like you said.
I mean, the other thing too of just like not going for like crazy outboard racks for my mixing rig, it saved space for my speakers, which, in Dolby Atmos, it's a lot of speakers, a lot of space in the room for that.
Yeah.
So I could just kind of put them wherever they sounded best, and there was nothing in the way of me doing that.
Not to mention power and all of those things as well. Like it's a lot of power
tons
to
of power, heat, right?
Management,
like,
all that.
Your room like really heats up when you got a bunch of analog gear like cooking like crazy. Definitely. So it solved a lot of problems that way. The other thing, not gonna lie, like I sold a bunch of gear that I owned, and I had budget available, and the only thing I needed to spend money on was speakers. So I just went out and got the best ones. You know what I mean? I just was like, I'm going to make this the best monitoring environment I've ever been in. And, there's just not going to be any excuses anymore. I just want to hear everything I want to hear, and just listen deeply and make the right decisions that need to be made in the moment while I'm hearing them.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, absolutely. And anyone who's sort of watching, like whatever you decide to do, I suppose that's, do the best thing that you can and try to be as educated as possible, I suppose, on how to do that. And, we're all trying to get better and, do different things. But yeah, as long as you sort of know the reason why you do something, that's
that's the key.
You know what I mean? That's the thing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So just on the speakers and mixing in Dolby Atmos, we could spend a lot of time talking about how different and, how crazy it can be.
For sure.
However, I think one thing that you were talking about listening and that being really, the most amazing, important thing, more than using your eyes, things like that. There's one thing that I've sort of applied to listening to Dolby Atmos, particularly in this room, just when I was learning how to even think about it. And yeah, particularly when I got Apple Music running in here, it was like, okay, I want to play every song I've ever heard in Atmos now. Yeah. That is available. And I would go through it and I would mute all the speakers and I would just go, all right, what's this side doing? And I'll just listen to that and go, whoa, that's what they're doing with that. All right, cool. That's what gives that immersion from that side. And then what about the other side? What about the rears? What about the heights? What are the heights doing? What are people putting in the heights? And that was so helpful to just go, wow, that's the kind of thing that it all sort of folds down to, or when you're listening to it in the center spot, it's all on and it hits you hard and it's really immersive, right?
For sure.
How is that achieved? And listening to those things. So I was wondering if you had a process like that, or how did you first get into hearing this and understanding what's being done?
I mean, I first got into Atmos working with an artist back in 2021 named Selina Martin, and we were doing the very classic COVID record
from
process. Like, she was in another country, I was here. We're doing things over Zoom, audio movers, that whole thing. And
cool.
At one point, the news came that Apple Music has Dolby Atmos now, and I was like, cool. What's that? I'd heard of it before. I saw a demo at NAMM once. My friend Justin Gray, he had gotten into it before, and he was telling me a few things about it. But to be honest with you, before I got into it myself, the only thing that I understood is that he was buying a lot of speakers.
Oh yeah, and we've had him on the podcast already,
Justin's
talking
amazing.
About all of this. Yeah, he's the best. Yeah.
But anyways, all that to say, Selina brought me into it because I read the news. I mentioned it to her over one of our sessions, and I was just like, "Do you want to try it out?" And we were just on headphones on audio movers, and I was like, "Okay, let's take this one sound from your record and let's put it through the render and let's move it around." And we both were just shocked. We're just like, "What is?"
And this is just binaural.
This is just binaural, and
wow.
Selina's music is known for being really dense and really layered. And so for her to be able to achieve all this separation and find a home for all these sounds she wanted in her music, that was a huge revelation for her. And she had so many ideas for what to do with it. But awesome. all that to say, that's what got me into it originally. And so we just started going. We're just like, where should this go? What should this do? Give me a little bit of time. Let me do some panning and then I'll show it to you and things like that. So, I kind of came at it from the opposite approach. It sounds like you sort of took this approach of I'm going to get it in here and then I'm going to almost deconstruct what people are currently doing. I had no idea what I was doing. I just got the tools and we followed our instincts. And
that's an adventure just to have right there. But with my thing there, the difference I suppose was I did know about it from Post World, and I was already mixing in 5171.
Right, of course. So you came from that background.
So that was kind of the thing. And I was mixing. I was still mostly analog for music stuff, and then I was doing 5171. And then it was like, okay, this Dolby Atmos thing is now coming out to music. I have no excuse anymore. It's like this thing I wanted to do but couldn't justify. Now I am able to, because it's coming to everything that I do, not just one aspect at the highest level.
Right.
So it was like, now's the time. And then I was running 9.1 for a while with the Dolby Atmos renderer. This is the production suite before it was integrated as one sort of application. And I was running that, and I was kind of experimenting just in 9.1. Before I had heights, I had 9.
Right.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
No one else has done that.
Wow. It started on 9.1. Cool.
Yeah. before I even had heights. And I was just like, well, that's the sort of, do I put more into the wides? How much am I going to use the heights as opposed to, like, what's the best thing to play around with? And I already had 8 speakers I'm running. So adding 2 more, like for the 7, it was easier than trying to figure out how I'm going to mount these things and all of that. So I just added 2 more and started playing in 9-1. And that was crazy. So I think that the song that got me the most when I played it back was the Imogen Heap Magic Me song. Have you heard that?
I don't know that one.
Oh my God.
Okay, I think I got some listening to do after we're done.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, please make me a list as well. But that one really blew me away. It was it's one of the Dolby sort of trailer ones, and there's a story that goes along with it. You've probably seen the visuals.
Okay.
This girl's on a planet. She's got like this sort of it looks like a tuning fork kind of weapon.
I don't know
this.
A monster. I'm so curious.
Get on it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really good. I'll see if I can maybe link or show something over the top of this. But that blew me away, and that song was created specifically with all the sound design of this little short in mind, and it was beautifully done. And in Atmos, it is just top notch. So that was like, okay, now I have to get the heights. Now I have to go all out. I'm going to change everything, get rid of the analog, and go hard. Yeah. And then now, these days, I mix everything in Dolby Atmos. So
there you go.
That's the way. That's how I do it now.
Now, are you doing your Atmos mixes first when you're producing something, or do you do that after?
Right. So yes, I do prefer to start in Atmos, and I will build it from that. Although that's because it's very much a post-production workflow where you build it at its highest, and then the lower deliverables 5.1 stereo,
and then you can use the fold downs.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
From what I don't do a lot of post work. I'm barely any, but from colleagues that do it, they've showed me their setups, and they've got these even separate computers that are pulling in the re-renders and recording them in. And things like that.
That's something I don't actually need to do that here. But when you've got bigger sessions where it's huge and you're basically printing to one, and then it gets complicated with that. But
right. So you're already used to working that way.
Yeah, that's more like at a dub stage you would expect that kind of level, or even at a sort of higher end studio. And not to say this isn't high end, it's more just a different approach. So I'm more working for home entertainment where it's not theatrical, right? So there's differences in what's necessary, I suppose, for that. With theatrical, it would get a lot more complicated, and you
sure does
definitely need to be actually mixing in a theater and all of that stuff, which Dustin has done for his album, which is amazing.
Yeah, I got to be with him on some of those sessions.
That's
it was
incredible.
Pretty eye-opening, actually.
I bet. Yeah, I saw some of the footage and it was insane. Yeah, was that in your town? Was that nearby, or? Yeah,
the sound stage that he rented is this place called Company 3, which is in Toronto.
Right.
They do some pretty amazing stuff, like some feature films and Netflix shows and things like that. Yeah, it's pretty wild, that place. It's an amazing sounding room.
I bet. Yeah.
Great people that work there.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, it's sort of just a bit of a different scenario here. I can do up to, say Netflix or any sort of streaming or home entertainment deliverable for posts all the way up to Atmos. But typically I'm building it in Atmos, and then it will probably end up as 5.1. So
sure,
that's sort of my approach. I'll bake it in. Makes sense. It's sort of it's better for it because of the entire workflow that I get access to doing it in that arena. Best way to think about it is if you shoot a video in 1080 and export 1080, then it's going to be 1080, right? But if you shoot it in 4K and then export 1080, it's better, right? It still looks better than if you shot in 1080. That's what I'm using Atmos for, even in 5.1.
Makes sense, yeah.
So it's stronger.
And you do that for music productions as well?
Yeah, so I don't do as many music productions now, but when I do, I try to do that too. And I've sort of recently, with the new Stereo Direct, I'm trying to use it in a bit of a so I don't break my existing workflow, I'll try and do it in a similar way. So the idea is anything to sides or rears or anything is really not ever a duplicate. So it doesn't, when you bring it back down, I can use the Stereo Direct as my main stereo mix.
Yeah, it is a nice sounding fold down a lot of the time.
Well, the funny thing is it's not even a fold down. because it's like a
Right.
it's a redirect, like it's literally putting it in the front forcibly.
It's just like, instead of going to this speaker, go to the front.
Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of a unique way to think about what you put in the sides. So I'm just kind of using it when I do music. I'll use like reverbs, weight only kind of thing in the sides and rears. Those kinds of ways of mixing or using the thing.
Makes sense.
Unless it's objects. And then,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It kind of folds better that way.
Yeah.
So that's what I've done.
Yeah,
but I don't
definitely
do it as
when
much
I
as
first
you.
got into it, like when I first got into it, that was my thinking. Like with Selina's record, like it was the first thing I did, and I just thought like, cool, that's just what makes sense. Like what you said about like shooting in 4K and exporting at 1080, I was thinking about it that way, and we did that record that way, and I love how it turned out.
Awesome.
I slowly learned over time, though, in doing more of these projects, that was a really unique situation. I mean, that was an artist who heard her music in that format and felt newly and uniquely inspired by the opportunities that presented.
Interesting.
And
maybe more like a film. That's probably the difference.
Exactly. Yeah, to the extent that different decisions were being made because this new like three-dimensional space that we could mix within existed.
Yeah.
That's really unique. I've learned over time that most of the time when you get asked to do these Atmos mixes, it's probably the artist's first time hearing it, right? And they might not be as enthusiastic as that.
Right.
And she was like even enthusiastic to like understand how the tools work and what was possible and things like that. You know, that's a really unique for an artist. And
yeah, right.
A lot of people, they just want you to show them. And like some people are skeptical of it or scared of it, or, you know, because it's unfamiliar. It's a new thing.
Definitely. Especially if they've already released the stereo and now you're bringing out so it's a different way of thinking already just to do that.
Exactly. And that's in most cases, that's the circumstances I'm working within.
Yeah.
So with that being said, like, you know, it really takes the stars to line up to be able to make that work. I mean, I tried to take what I learned from that workflow from that first record I did and bring it into everything else I produced, but I kept running into hurdles of people not really fully understanding what Atmos is.
Right.
You know, I was running into situations where I'd give people the binaural phone down and be like, okay, take this home and listen to it in headphones. Tell me what you think. And, you know, they'd send me a message and be like, oh, man, I played this in my car and it sounded so amazing and immersive. And it's like, oh, man.
That's not how it works at all.
There's a big gap here of understanding what this is. And, you know, and I can't even fault it because it's a totally new way of thinking. It's a totally new product. And so for that reason, a lot of the times I still do start in stereo even when I am producing it. But when it's when it's that like unique circumstance of like artist who wants to put the work in to understand what it is and what they can do with it, and has something unique to say with the tool, then yeah, let's do it. I mean, Justin's album is a great example of that. I mean,
written for it.
Justin himself is like the premier, you know, Atmos engineer.
He's the guru.
Globally. Like
totally.
He's one of the best of the best. Like he's the person you go to figure out how this stuff works.
Completely.
And so him being an artist himself, like natural choice to want to do this in immersive. I mean, I spent the better part of a month with him on the initial tracking sessions for that.
Cool.
And the first day, you know, we were in a control room that had 5.1 set up, and we're like, okay, let's bring in all the speakers that we need to make this a 916.
Yeah, wow.
I think we did do 9.1. Yeah, it was 916 we were doing.
He said from the start that it was designed to be 916. So as in, it doesn't make sense without it. Yeah.
That's what we were monitoring when we were tracking it.
Just tracking. Wow.
Yep. We weren't going through a renderer. We were just doing like straight multi-channel.
Right, okay.
So, because that just would have been way too much to add.
Sure.
The renderer came in when Justin took that stuff home and started mixing it. But we were able to monitor in multi-channel, and that was huge for a couple reasons. Like, first of all, like we had microphone arrays in the live room, and so that gave us the opportunity to really assess if they were doing what we needed them to do.
Yeah, true.
In fact, man, that was a crazy experience. There were so many times during that recording that like I almost got this like weird vertigo where I wouldn't understand like what space I was in at any given point, because I was in this control room, but I was surrounded by this array of speakers that was like always feeding in the array of microphones that was on the live room. And if you've ever monitored like a really properly like geometrically set up like microphone array, it sounds like real life.
Yeah.
Like it's just, there's nothing like it. It's crazy. So sometimes like, you know, I would hear a footstep behind me and be like, who's that? But it was actually just like audio from the live room.
Oh my God, that's crazy. He even said that there was a time where, you know, there would be musicians going like, why do I have to do another one? He's like, just trust me. Like you'll hear it in a minute. Yeah. And he mentioned that. Yeah, that was funny.
It was so cool. I mean, we would make sure to try to give musicians some context of what was going on, and you know, Justin would be guiding them to do certain things, but eventually he'd be like, okay, come on and hear what we're hearing. And, you know, we would take their first overdub and put it in this speaker, and their second overdub and put it in that speaker. And then all of a sudden it would make sense to them.
Yes.
And 99% of these situations, people are experiencing immersive audio for the first time. But what was happening is people hearing their performances this way was inspiring them to try things that they might not have tried had they not had the opportunity to hear it that way. You know, like some people were insisting and being like, okay, actually, you know what? Send me back in there. I'm going to give you this, this, and this now to fill up all the other speakers.
I love that. That's so cool. He mentioned that as well, but I mean, that's a whole new dimension of, you know, writing and recording. That
bingo.
You know, you add that into the intention of actually building it rather than just taking something that's whatever it is and making it immersive. It's written that way and recorded that way. It's insane.
Exactly.
It's the next
level. So, you know, nowadays that's rare and unique, like what Justin did and what Selina did, and you know, a couple of other artists I've worked with in that capacity. It's rare, but
I hope more people do it though.
I'm hoping that as we move forward with this, more people want to take that challenge.
Yeah. I think it's very worth it, because Justin sent me some of the ADMs of the album, and I forget which song it was particularly. It was the one with all the spoons, you know, from yeah, that was
all the like found sounds and things like that.
Yeah, that was that blew me away.
Yeah, that one's cool.
That was a really cool one. Yeah.
It's a pretty special record to get to play a part in, but it's crazy. Like, I mean, I spent about a month with him in studio, which I never get to do with anybody, but still that felt like a very small amount of the work that went into this. Like, Justin took it so much further once he got the tracks home and started mixing it and arranging it and all that.
Of course. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's awesome that you got to, you know, work with him on that. Like, and you guys been friends for a lot longer than that, right?
For sure. I mean, he was one of the first people I went to when I started getting into this, like when I was working on that record that I mentioned with Selina. Like,
right.
You know, I was just doing it binaurally, and so a lot of the time I was calling up Justin and be like, man, I don't want to screw this up. Like, here's something I'm trying. Does this work? Does that work? And, you know, he would be, you know, giving me lots of advice and guidance along the way. And
that's great.
You know, we still talk all the time, and, you know, now it's less of a, hey Justin, how the F do I do this? And it's you know, we're a bit more on a level now where we can sort of talk about more advanced concepts and techniques and ways of doing things and ways of listening to the music and things like that. So
that's awesome. It's
been really cool to be on that journey with somebody so passionate about it and talented with it.
Definitely. And I mean, the other thing that you were talking about as well, like the other sort of approach, if not doing it that way, which you said is more common to, you know, have the stereo release sort of already out. We spoke about this off camera, a little bit about sort of the idea of the perceived stereo, right? So what let's go into that a little bit, because I thought that was a really interesting one.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of the time, like you mentioned, stereo gets done first. I even do it with a lot of artists that I produce. Just, you know, if I'm having those early pre-production conversations with them and I'm bringing up a concept like Dolby Atmos and I can just tell it's going over their head, you know, I might, you know, if they want to put the work in and figure it out, great. But if not, let's just make music. You know what I mean?
Let's do the stereo first.
Let's do this in a way that's familiar. And, you know, honestly, like if the idea doesn't work in two speakers, it's probably not going to work in 16. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's nothing wrong with doing that, and there's certain advantages to working in stereo first too. Like maybe you want to cook things a certain way, and it's just like a little bit easier and quicker to use stereo tools to get it there.
Sure.
But you know, in any case, it is more common. A lot of the time, people though, you know, they finish the stereo mix, they finish the stereo master, and you know, there's a lot of creative decisions that go into getting it there. Not just from a mixing and mastering standpoint, but from a recording standpoint, from a writing standpoint, demoing standpoint. You know, a lot of the time, I'm just coming in to do the Atmos mix, and I get some stems or maybe a session and a stereo master. And, you know, I get the advantage of just pressing play and being like, man, cool song.
Yeah.
But to get it to that point sometimes takes years out of people's life.
Of course,
and all that to say, I understand that, having done it myself, and I respect the fact that so much work and time went into it. And what I take it as when I get that master is, here's my art, and I love it. Like, and so here's me. Great. Like,
yeah. And you want to respect that as its own thing,
like the last thing I want to do is come and be like, this is wrong and that is wrong, and no, it's not about that at that point. You know, somebody's put their life into this, and you know, that's important.
Absolutely.
So I really want to take some time with that stereo production and really understand what it is and what they're saying with it, and what the aesthetic is. You know, is it more modern? Is it electronic? Are the sounds more organic, or are they more imaginary? Or, you know, I'm thinking of all those things. And I need to honor all those things when I do the immersive mix eventually. That said, though, you know, the common thing that people think is like, well, you know, just do it conservatively. You know, I hear a lot of negativity sometimes around like Atmos mixes, especially for like big pop records, that, you know, people are just being too conservative. And that's true in some cases.
I have heard that too. Like, it's still very front heavy and things like that.
Yeah, there's
thing,
many situations where that's true. But what I've found is that when the production is calling for it, you can absolutely be adventurous with ways to fill up the room without breaking the intent of that stereo master. That's what I found. It's not about being like, okay, the sound went out of the front two speakers in the stereo mix, so it should also come out of the front two speakers in the Atmos mix. If that's what you're thinking, then what's even the point of doing this?
Yeah. But I mean, that brings us back to that perceived stereo, because like, if we're going to go to the lengths of, okay, well, when we move something away from the front stereo, well, we know that that's going to change sort of the sound in lots of different ways just by doing that, you know. And then I suppose you can still keep their intent of what the stereo was doing when it was at the front, keep that without it being there, so you can still spread it around the room and do whatever, but then it has to still do the same thing that they had. So how do you do that?
Yeah, you just got to be really in tune with what you're hearing. I mean, being in a really well calibrated room helps.
Of course.
Like, you need to be able to trust what your speakers are telling you to be able to make these calls, first of all. So learn how to calibrate a room, get equipment that does it in a way that's faithful and that you can trust.
Yeah.
Because that's ultimately like the first step. Like, if you're not hearing things properly, you can't make those calls. Let's say that you are, though. Like, let's say you're in a nice room, it's set up well, you're confident in your translation. So, you know, now you take, let's say, for example, some electric guitars that were in the front speakers. You know, nice wide doubled electric guitars.
Yep.
Very dense sound, a lot of low end, mids, highs, full spectrum's covered. With those especially, I found as soon as you move those off the front wall, the tone changes.
Yep.
And
Heaps.
I don't know, like, do you play guitar?
I do.
Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that like your main instrument? Like
drums was, but I play guitar, bass, sing as well. So yeah,
okay.
I'm familiar.
Well, so you know just as well as anybody that the guitar tone you choose to put on a recording is not an afterthought for a guitar
Not at all.
player.
No, that is
No.
the sound of the record sometimes.
People labor over getting that right. And so, you move that guitar off the front wall, the space it creates and the angle it's hitting it at you from may be really, really exciting, but the tone totally changes.
Yeah.
Even by just like moving it at, 30 degrees off the wall.
It's like a completely different EQ, basically.
Totally different EQ.
Yeah.
Like really dense sounds like that really expose what happens when you start repositioning things. Now, a lot of people that I talk to who are just getting into that, they call me up and they say like, man, what's up with this format? Like, why is it doing weird things like that? And it's like, no, it's not the format. That's
physics.
Just how we hear things.
Yeah.
That's just physics. Like we've got ears that have like a specific shape to them. And so when things hit the ears from a different angle, even if the sound itself, like, at source is the same sound, if it's hitting you from a different angle, it's going to sound different.
It's how you determine where it is even. That's part of that. It has to be.
Exactly.
Like things behind you sound darker, like naturally, because your ear's
big
facing
time, because all
forward.
the high end gets rolled off because it got to travel around your ear, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So all that stuff is real. It's valid. So, it's not enough to just take something and pan it. And then, if you don't get the results you want, just blame Dolby. It's
It's the start of the process.
Make an artistic choice spatially, but also understand that something's going to change in the sound because of that choice you made. And if you love the choice enough, do the work to correct the EQ or the transient properties. Resonances can sometimes start popping out when you start separating things from each other. Like it's pretty amazing, like the things that you realize were actually getting masked when things were just going out of two speakers. When you start pulling them apart, it's just like, oh my God, there's like a lot of 500 hertz like resonating on that vocal, and I got to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that was dealt with in the stereo mix because there was all this sound just like smashed on top of it, and now there isn't. And so you got to, even when you leave things in the same position, just by it being isolated, you have to deal with that differently.
Well, this is the balancing of mixing, right? Like this is, when you do one thing, it'll affect something else. So you've got to, it is really a balance of making sure you still get that intention across without anything being too much, too little, whatever. And that's across many different tools. Compression, for example, is a lot different to how you might treat a stereo track in Atmos.
For sure.
And I suppose we could get into the two bus thing too. Like there's definitely not as much of that.
That's another thing. Like stereo mixes. There's decades and decades of techniques that you can read about or learn about on YouTube, where people talk about putting things on their mix bus, like bus compression or saturation or what have you.
Yeah.
It can be a really effective tool in stereo, and sometimes it can really work well in Atmos, but I've found not as often as it does in stereo. Like often bus compression isn't the answer you're looking for if you want to glue things in an Atmos mix. I find you can do it. You can set up like an object bed and mix that way and get your master bus that way. I personally don't like to do that. I'm a big proponent of objects themselves, so like discrete objects for everything.
Right. I like that way too, although I have done object-based beds as well. But I think, the post workflow kind of destroys that. So I like to have the same. But certainly you're right.
Post is a bit different. Different considerations. But for music, I really like the idea of just using objects. Just even for like curating the tonality of the binaural mix, that can be really useful to just have everything individual sounds on individual objects, and you can choose that near, mid, far binaural setting,
exactly.
Sound by sound.
Yeah.
So I find that really useful, but I mean it makes it harder to create a mix bus. Definitely.
Yeah.
And I've figured out how to do it. Like I've set up a Pro Tools template that has all this crazy side chaining going on that, I can instantiate my favorite bus compressor plugin and feed it the side chain and have them all pumping together, and I can do it. That said though, like even when I figured it out, I'd say like 95% of the time when I try it, I hear it and it's just like, mm-mm. Like I just find it strange, like when I start separating things out in immersive, to just have like some acoustic guitar in the back of the room getting triggered by the kick drum in the front of the room. It just
doesn't quite work.
Something cognitively doesn't work for me that way, unless there's like a really specific musical effect behind it. Like in techno music, for example, there might be a synth like really heavily sidechaining to a kick drum.
Oh, like in Titanium by Sia or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's
that sort of thing.
That's a musical effect where like it's really extremely breathing and it's actually like creating a groove for the song. Like that's a different situation.
Sure. But as
just
as
like gentle
glue,
bus compression to glue things.
Yeah.
I don't find that it creates glue. I mean, it can sound good, but I don't think it does anything for connecting instruments on extreme sides of the room to each other specifically.
I agree with you.
What I do for that instead is I like to use some like really short like immersive reverb. So I love that cinematic rooms one. You probably use that things like that a lot in post, right? Yeah, there's a patch in there that I love to use for that, and I'll blend it in just really lightly in my immersive mixes.
Yep.
I mean, if you listen to one of my mixes, you probably wouldn't even know it's there, and it's kind of like that's how it should be, because all it's doing is it's giving a little bit of connectivity, is what I like to call it, between some of the individual sounds, and I like to get that in early in my mix, because
like a top-down
what
approach.
happens exactly like it kind of creates this like environment, and it gets like a bunch of sounds in a bunch of speakers at a very low level at a very early stage of the mix. And so what I find when I don't do that is like, I might take something and pan it really extremely to the rear while the rest of the mix is still kind of in the front, and that feels weird. But if I get this like room reverb thing going first, when I make these extreme decisions, it doesn't feel as extreme because I've already started to open up the room a little bit. The speakers like on the ceiling and the rears are starting to do something already, so it doesn't feel jarring when I take something from the front and move it to the back, because
it's still a little bit in the front. Basically, it's just a tiny bit with this reverb.
It's being represented throughout the room in general, so it doesn't feel out of place if I take it
it's like
else,
smoothing it out a bit from this harsh wherever it is kind of thing, because that makes a lot of sense. I do the same thing in post a lot, so I'm talking when I talk, I'm like talking in post production, you're talking in music. They do overlap in a lot of ways still, I think, and it
sounds like I mean, we seem like we're finding a lot of things in common just talking about these approaches. I should speak with people like you that do post stuff more, because you guys have been doing Dolby Atmos way long before us music people have. And we like to talk it up like we know everything, but we don't. You do.
Well,
we're the real engineers.
No, not at all. No, I'd say that the only thing that I had a head up on, which was probably a lot of music engineers who are just coming from stereo straight into Dolby Atmos. That's a much bigger jump than from 7.1 already. So there's things like divergence and overlapping things and the phase issues that causes and all that sort of stuff that I was already across and sort of found ways. Dolby Atmos is very intuitive.
Yeah, you're up the learning curve already.
Yeah. So in terms of like how to upmix something without it being an issue, if I don't have an upmixing tool, like I kind of know how to do that already. So I wonder if you have done anything like this. I actually have a template in Logic that takes a stereo song and I stem split it. So it's got just drums, vocals, guitars, bass, and other, I think it's got piano maybe. And I can take that and approximate what I would roughly do for an Atmos mix for those things. And it sounds really good. And it's like, that's crazy because you should never do that. You should never do that.
Well, you can't anymore. Apple actually flags that stuff.
There you go. And this is why.
Ironically, even though they make Logic Pro themselves.
They brought out the stem splitter.
They do flag the stem splitting stuff.
That's right.
But I mean,
it's because it's there are
Logic
issues.
Stem splitter actually sounds really good though.
I was
actually really impressed with it.
Me too. Yep. When I came out, I was like, oh my God, this is like another tool I can use for restoration or splitting out the vocal from a noisy track or something. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I have used it for that. But for this thing, it was just like, okay, I want to take a music track and I kind of want to, use it to roughly get an idea, or maybe I can actually use it for upmixing a score or something. Even just
Right.
small breakout,
So when you get like a stereo music track to put in a film, this is a tool you can.
I've done it before, yeah. But even like
Yeah.
I do mix music as well. It's very, not much, not as often, definitely. But
Right.
I'll do it for fun, for sure. Or whatever. My favorite song, I'll chuck it in and I'll go, cool. I'm going to make it Atmos because they haven't released it in Atmos. And all I'm doing, it's not going anywhere. It's just for me. But it's a way for me to just go immersify it. And it works.
Exactly, yeah.
And it was really interesting. So applying those same techniques that are like the 5171, avoiding phase issues, how I'm doing things like that. I wonder if you use in your real music,
I do a little bit of that. Like, the one trick I like to use is, if you have a sound in your mix, let's say it's like a stereo synth, or actually, another good example is like in a hip hop track. Sometimes one of the tracks that you'll have is like a sample, like something that's, from an MPC or a vinyl record or something like that. And, it could be like a drum break, or it might even be like a full, like wholesale, like take of like 2 bars of a song, right?
Right, yeah.
And so in that track, sometimes you've got vocals, you've got bass, you got strings, you got a bunch of stuff, right? Can't use that stem splitter for your music mix, unfortunately. But
you could use it for
one
half
technique.
Of it.
Well, one technique I use. Actually, I can't even use it for the sample.
Oh, really?
I've seen those things get flagged before. So unfortunately,
well, there's artifacts
that's
and stuff. So this thing that I do is definitely full of artifacts. So it's just for me to listen to quickly, as a temp.
I mean, that said, the tools are getting better. But I mean, what I do in lieu of that is I'll do like some mid-side splitting.
Yes.
So I'll use that tool Wave Center, and I've got a preset for it that isolates just the mids, and a preset for it that isolates the sides. And
that works really well on vocals for the harmonies.
Great
and
on vocals.
So good.
Oh man, it's so awesome for that.
Yeah.
Because it allows me to take this one sound and at least separate it out into 2 components and be like, okay, I'm gonna put the mids here and I'm gonna put the sides here. Yeah. And it can give you some really musical results. And sometimes you even take things further, and then I'll take the mid and I'll band split it. I'll put an instance of Pro Q that's like low pass at 500 hertz, and then another instance that's high pass at 500 hertz. And maybe that one that's high passed is isolating more of the strings, and the one that's low pass is isolating the pianos.
Okay.
Right?
So doing with EQ too. So that's cool.
Yeah, you can do little tricks like that to get really creative. Because definitely when you're talking about putting things in different speakers, you can't just like duplicate the track and like put one in the front and one in the back. I mean, you could, but all you're doing is creating a phantom image.
Yeah.
It's much more interesting to decorrelate those sounds in some way and put them in different places.
Completely. In fact, I would say that's even a rule. Like,
kind of
you have those phase issues things that happens. So like if you duplicate a sound and try and put it somewhere else, you definitely get phase issues,
especially with low end. Man, it's funny. I've seen some mixing tips going around about people saying, "Oh yeah, you should take a little bit of your bass and also put it in the rear speakers." And
wait, what?
No,
that's
no,
nuts.
You shouldn't.
I'm telling you now.
Shouldn't do that. I mean, there's a lot of people like to say there's no rules with this stuff. It's still the Wild West. I think it's been around long enough now that
there are some rules.
You can make a few rules, so let's make that a rule.
I agree with you, and I think that there's certainly best practices that have already been established for sure, and there are other things that are more Wild West, and you can like be really creative with it. But some things just don't make sense. Like, don't just put all of your drums in the rear right speaker. Don't do that.
For real.
That's pretty clear.
Oh man, funny story on that. So, have you ever heard any of like the original like quadraphonic mixes when quad first was a thing?
Maybe.
Are you aware of any of this stuff?
Yeah. Well, I know that like the Beatles used to put their drums on the left, but like not quad. No, I haven't heard the quad stuff like that.
I heard a quadraphonic music mix for the first time earlier today.
Okay.
It was
maybe send this
War
to me.
Pigs by Black Sabbath, and man, oh man,
Wild West.
There was some crazy stuff going on in that mix, dude. Like it was, you could tell it was the first time these people had ever heard surround sound, and they just went absolutely nuts with it. We're talking like Like, do you know that song well, War Pigs?
No, I don't.
Like,
but I've probably heard it before.
Okay.
But I can't think of it now.
I mean, the classic bit is there's a guitar bit that goes "Dana," when generals gathered in their masses.
Oh yeah. I know the
Before
song,
that,
yeah.
there's an intro where they do the guitar thing, and then there's no vocals, and there's in the space it's like a hi-hat tapping.
Okay.
So in the stereo mix, it's just like, hi-hat tapping where the drum kit is. But in this quadraphonic mix, they took the tapping hi-hat and spun it around your head.
Oh my god.
It's pretty wild.
It's full on.
It was really getting to hear that was really eye-opening. It was wild. It was a wild mix. It was fun to listen to, but surround aesthetics have come a long way. Oh my god. Like
Definitely.
It really put a spotlight on that for sure.
Definitely. I think there's, like we were saying before, there are things that probably could be considered rules now.
Yeah.
Like just overlapping to post again. Like for example, this is a spec requirement. Like this is you can't
Right.
break this rule. It will get flagged, and they'll decline
Right.
it. So things like even your loudness, like for Atmos we have,
Yep.
like there's loudness specific things that don't really apply to stereo as much.
Yep.
Even your LUFS.
Thank God for that
Yeah.
number being -18.
I agree.
Man. Ooh.
Yeah, no, completely.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the digital clipping thing, like it matters a lot, and they'll reject
Yeah.
it if you don't. Whereas in
Yep.
stereo, you can go all the way down to -6, and no one cares. They just put the limiter on. But that doesn't happen
Yeah.
for this. In post,
Yeah.
there's much more strict rules like that, and one of them is
Mhm.
placement of certain things. Like a center channel is always going to be a dialogue. There's a reason for that.
Yeah, for sure.
And even your dialogue norm limits you have for different places. You've got different LUFS measurements you got to have as well. And this matters from, as we were saying with Justin's thing, from the studio or home entertainment mix to the cinema. Like they change, then there's different requirements. All this stuff.
For sure.
It's crazy amount of rules.
Yeah, it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of learning to be able to go from a place of like getting the tools running for yourself to actually delivering a mix that will be accepted. Right? It's a pretty big gap when you're first getting into it.
For sure. And look, the funny thing that overlaps with that is sort of no matter what we're building, whether it's a film or music or whatever it is, the whole point of this podcast is to try and make it a little bit easier for people to sort of digest and go, you know what? The main intention here is always to be creative and make something awesome that we love and that we're passionate about. The technology kind of doesn't matter next to that. And that's the whole point. We're trying to remove the technology, like the digital thing, removing the obstacles that, are stopping you from being objective and just making your art. And that's what this whole thing's about. It's why we're talking about it, which is pretty cool.
I mean, usually in a situation like that, it means learning the heck out of your tool.
That's right.
Getting to know everything you need to know so you can cross that boundary of, being bound by the technology.
Absolutely.
To just knowing it and having it being a part of your creative workflow. I mean, I'm definitely there now with Dolby Atmos. Like, I feel very comfortable working in it. And when I hear a song, I immediately know how I'm going to approach it. And I just get to work. And I mean, I know these Avid S1 consoles behind me like a musical instrument at this point. And
that's awesome.
I just go. And so, that's the point you want to get to.
Yes. Yeah.
With all this stuff. But there's a lot to learn. Thankfully, like people like yourself and like lots of others that are providing tons of resources to help people learn on this. When I first got into this, there wasn't those resources, and it was hard, man.
Yeah,
I was just calling Justin all the time, poor guy.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think well, thank you for saying that too. But just I think the whole idea is that this is such a cool thing. And we can see the value in it, and we do this all the time, and we go, wow, this is obviously a powerful thing that if it works, the technology falls away and you're just enjoying the art. That's why we're here. All of that stuff, that's what we're really trying to do. And I suppose the more people that get onto this and understand it and can learn the tools, then it's like, well, we can just make better art and feel that immersive thing that happens when you listen to a song and you go, oh, this was written for me. Oh my God, or watch a movie
Yes.
and cry at it. It's just, those are the things we want. We're looking for it.
Oh man, isn't it wild how listening and experiencing music immersively triggers emotions? I mean, that was one of the things that drove me to this in the first place. I mean, the technology's cool. It's fun to do. And I mean, I get enthusiastic about technical things. That was definitely part of it. But really, what drove me to it was just seeing how people react to their music and react to hearing other people's music. From this perspective, like being inside of the mix, it's just
Definitely,
it does something different to you. And it's really powerful, man. Like I've seen people like really break down and get emotional working on their music in this format, and I mean that's just special.
completely.
I mean,
I can't say it better.
yeah, it's hard to put it into words. Like it's just really special being able to give those experiences to people and to have learned a tool that can move people in that way. I mean, that's so cool. Like that totally transcends the technology itself. Like the technology as serving a purpose, and it's not about the tech at that point. It's about what it's doing.
Completely. Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to think about it, and it's really, that's why we're making music at all, right? And like all of those things, it's about the human feeling or connection to other people and spreading something like, or sharing something that you put your heart and soul into, and then other people can feel that too. And if that translates, the technology is how that happens, but it's not actually the important thing. It's the song, it's the message, and how that's expressed through this is next level. I feel completely the same way about it.
Yeah. No, it's a cool tool, man. Like I'm really glad I got into it, because it's what I dreamt of doing, getting into the audio field in the first place. I mean, I first was in a studio as a member of a band, like in my teens, and I just fell in love with it early on, about what you can do in a studio to enhance your music, and even some ways that studio experience can then feed back onto the stage and things like that. And adding this immersive element to it is just this whole new dimension, and it can be such a powerful tool if done well.
Yeah.
If done well.
If you don't go too far into the Wild West.
Exactly. I mean, I always say like the ceiling for what you can do in immersive is so much higher now.
Literally.
Well, literally, yeah. There's literally speakers up there. But I mean, there was an experience I had with an artist where I started doing their immersive mix, and then they started explaining some of the tracks that were in the song, and they were saying, okay, well, yeah, with this one, I told the producer, like, oh yeah, I want it to feel like it's a choir that's starting at the back of the church, but then they're walking towards you. And, we added all this reverb and automated it and did all this stuff to give it that effect. And so, that's why the sound sounds like that. And, I was talking to the producer, and I was just like, let's get a stem of that with all your automation off. and so then, just took the raw sound and actually like did the spatial,
so it's real,
like automation
really
that they were describing. They were instead of like doing it with like reverb and effect automation, things like that. It's just like, so you want it to be at the back of the room, and
you
then
can literally
be
do
at the
that
front.
now.
Like we can do that now. Yeah. So I mean, it creates cool opportunities like that. So the ceiling is higher in terms of what you can do. But I think the floor, like the basement, is lower. Like you can really mess some things up if you don't know what you're doing with these tools, right? I mean, I've heard, unfortunately, I've heard a few Atmos mixes where, I make it 5 seconds in, and it's like, why'd you do that? Why'd you assault me like that?
Well, I got to ask you, what your use of LFE then? That's one way I've seen it go wrong real bad. So like,
it can oh man, that's a tricky one.
It is.
Yeah.
What's your approach to that then? And then I want to move on to some of the artists you've worked with specifically. So yeah,
sure.
What's your approach to that?
LFE, I just make sure two things. Whatever I'm putting in there is unique content. that is decorrelated from whatever is in the main speaker mix.
Okay.
And I do that because you just never really know how like somebody's playback system has set up that LFE.
Right, for bass management and things like that.
Like it could be doing double duty with bass management. It could be like a second subwoofer in another part of the room. One's doing LFE, one's doing bass management. You don't know how well they've got that phase aligned with their speakers. I mean, I think a lot of people don't understand really how to do that and what that is. And
Sure.
I can't count on the world understanding that, by the time I finish my mix.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Things like putting a low pass on your LFE bus, that kind of thing. We never said anything directly to 4. Is that one of the tricks that you would say?
Well, not just that, but like I'll, instead of like sending a kick drum to it and then low passing it and putting it to my LFE, like I will instead, I'll use a tool that is like a subharmonic generator.
Right.
And it's generating new frequencies off of the kick drum. And, I'll musically tune it to the song or to the sound or something like that. And then I'll take that and I'll just tuck that in really low level in my LFE.
That makes a lot of sense. And I can actually attribute that to pretty much any speaker. Like you were talking about the phantom centers, if you just duplicate something in the phase issues. I think the reason, or maybe the fix of that to make it feel immersive, and I've talked about this before, is the idea that for something to feel immersive with all these speakers around us, it's happening because there's different sound coming from lots of places, not the same sound. That's the reason it feels
Big
like
time.
that and not just phasey.
Yep.
So it's the same for this sub.
So I mean that's a big one for the subwoofer.
Okay.
I mean it's going to give you that sense of immersion like you're talking about.
Yep.
And it's going to get you around those phase issues. So yeah, subharmonic generators is a big one that I'll use for that.
Awesome.
And I'm also tucking it in at a very low level. I don't like to get my primary low end from using the LFE.
Yes. So you're bass managed then?
So I bass manage all my speakers.
Yep.
So like each speaker channel is a full range channel, which is getting bass managed to my subwoofer, but my subwoofer is also doing double duty as my LFE.
Right. Same as me.
But I'm making sure my speaker mix, like without any LFE, is still a great mix with lots of low end.
Yes.
And if you go back to the original AES papers that are laying out how you're supposed to use even 5.1 surround, they talk about using the LFE that way.
Yeah.
Like you should mix in a way whereas if a user doesn't have that LFE channel, that it's still a cohesive mix.
Absolutely. All these channels are supposed to be full range. Exactly. So the subwoofer is not a subwoofer extending; it's an LFE channel on its own.
Exactly. So that's my approach with it. Make sure it's decorrelated. Don't overuse it. Hey, once in a while, if you want like a really cool special effect, it can be a really fun way to get it.
Yeah, like an impact or some sort of sub drop.
But it shouldn't feel like the mix is lacking something if you don't have it, or say for example it's set up weird. I mean, one thing I like to do with my LFE sends actually is on my template I actually have like a phase inversion button on my LFE because I want to hear how my LFE sounds if the user has their subwoofer out of phase.
Interesting.
Like I want to make sure that my mix doesn't fall apart.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
That's
so
very
I'm
interesting.
like when I'm doing that, I'm testing to see how well I've decorrelated my bass content.
Right.
So if I flip the phase and the low end in my mix starts disappearing when I turn up the LFE, I got a problem because that phase flipping that I did in my mix could be representative of how somebody has their system set up.
Agreed. Yeah.
And like the way these LFEs sound, they change when they go through these codecs too. Like, man, have you ever soloed an LFE from Apple Music? Like,
No, I haven't actually. I should do that.
do it sometime.
Okay.
You'll be surprised.
Really? Okay.
It's like it. I've done it a few times and it doesn't sound like the LFE I mixed. Again, I mean, I don't want to totally like, dish on Apple too much because them adopting it is one of the reasons that I have the opportunity to do all this work.
Totally.
But it's just to say that like there's another step that comes after, which is like encoding it and then decoding it, which changes the sound, which could also change the phase relationship between all your channels.
Yeah, completely.
So just think about that, right?
In fact, I'm pretty sure, to bring up Justin again, he's going to love this. But he's got a whole bunch of videos on that exact phenomenon.
Yeah.
So like, there's a whole study on how those things change and how we should, sort of adopt it. Logic does have like representations of that, which they're actually different again, but similar, to kind of hear.
Yeah, I guess the message is there's just so many moving parts with this that to just send the same content to it and just hope that it all stays phase coherent throughout the entire ingestion and encoding and decoding process is just, it's literally just asking too much. So decorrelate it.
Yep.
Decorrelate your LFE, kids.
Absolutely. That's a good one. And it's interesting that does overlap.
Yeah, so that's how I approach that. I mean, subharmonic generators, things like Submarine from Waves is a really good tool for that. Subbloom is another one I like to use. So yeah.
Cool. Okay. So and just to make sure I understand that, so it's like sending the kick and bass maybe to that bus which has that on it, wet only. That goes to the LFE bus.
Yeah, 100% wet.
Yeah.
That goes to the LFE.
Got it. All right. Yeah. Cool. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and then I've got a button on my Stream Deck too that it takes my LFE channel in my mix and it actually routes it to my center speaker. And what that allows me to do is I can monitor what's going through my LFE in full range. It's kind of like a final quality check because when you're just listening to it through your subwoofer, the subwoofer can't reproduce full range.
That's right.
But maybe you've made a mistake in your mix and actually sent a full range electric guitar to your LFE. So that button is like my last line of defense to just like solo my LFE, listen to it on a full range speaker and say like, okay, yeah, I've done the right job here.
It should sound, just low pass basically. Yeah, cool.
Bingo. Yeah.
There you go. That's a great one. Yeah, cool. Oh, well, that's some good tips there. Okay, so let's move on to some of the projects you've worked on. Some of them pretty awesome, prestigious, sort of clients. What kind of projects have you sort of most enjoyed? Could you tell me about some of the ones that, most notably, I suppose, the ones that you've done before?
Yeah, earlier this year, a mix for FKA Twigs' most recent album came out, and I did the Dolby Atmos versions for that. That one was a really fun one. I mean, just listening to that music in stereo right away, I could tell that, I was going to be able to do some cool things in Atmos. Interestingly, though, with that one, like the early feedback was, make sure the stereo is represented well, which, goes without saying. Like I always take that as like a pillar of how I approach it. But that said, like if you listen to those mixes, there's moments where the room is really, really full. But I feel like I put the time in and did it in a way that really honors what they created in 2 channels and just expanded on it. So that was a fun challenge to be able to do that. And the music was, unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure.
Just to be in a room listening to that music and contributing something creatively to that project was a huge honor and just a lot of fun to do.
Absolutely. And what was the album called?
It's called Eusexua.
Eusexua. Okay, cool.
Came out earlier this year.
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna have to check that one out. And there was another one which is a funny story because I think we spoke about it early on. So the Jax album.
Yeah, that's right.
That was funny because I have a little story and then I'll let you talk about the project. Like essentially what happened was, so my partner just found, it ended up being the one song you didn't do, but it's from that album. Right. But that Victoria's Secret song obviously came out and she was obsessed with that. And she's like,
great song.
Awesome song. Great performance.
Yeah.
And the whole record's awesome. So she was listening to this and I'm blasting it going, this is so cool. I wonder if it's in Atmos, and it wasn't or something. I don't think it was when I was looking.
Yeah, I think maybe originally it wasn't.
Right.
And they got an Atmos mix done, but then, she put out the full LP and I got to do the Atmos mixes on the rest of that.
That's awesome. Yeah. So even before that though, like I went to Simple Plan or something, some show nearby, and she just was there. I didn't even know she was going to be playing, and then I'm like, that's Jax. And then she plays all the songs and I'm like, that's so cool. And this is like a big arena show. It was awesome. And
and man, she's rad.
She's amazing. Oh god, so cool. So cool. And great songs. Love the album. And then talking to you, and then it's like, he's one of your credits is that album. I'm like, that's so cool.
That's right.
So how did you get onto that one? And what was the go with that one?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty fortunate a couple years ago. I got connected with some people at Atlantic Records down in the States, and started doing some Atmos mixes for them. And, eventually kind of my name started making the rounds around the office, and
Cool.
started getting contacts from more A&Rs and more projects. And, I got them to thank, in a lot of ways. They've sent me a pretty steady stream of work over the years, and that was one of them that kind of came through from the label that way. So yeah, they wanted Atmos mix done for it, and got to go to town on making that one happen. And so many awesome artists have come through them. FKA Twigs was one of them.
Yeah.
Some of them have been, local stuff. Like, for example, there's this band Envy of None. I got connected to that through this studio. Like, somebody from the band was in the studio and found out I did Dolby Atmos, and they needed Dolby Atmos done for the mix.
Cool.
So, then things came up that way.
I love it when artists
really
ask for it specifically.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
good.
that's one where they were actually like really involved. They were sitting in the room with me and helping me make the decisions, and really, really invested in that. Really, I mean, their album is so wild, and that was another one where I heard it right away, and I was like, this is meant for Dolby Atmos.
That's amazing.
They got this really awesome singer in the band, Maya Wynn, so talented and just throws so many layers on her voice. You go through and solo the tracks, and it's not just one lead vocal, it's like 25 or 30 layers of all this crazy stuff. So I mean, that one I was just having a field day with spreading it around to different places.
I bet.
And the guitarist from that band is it was the guitarist in Rush, Alex Lifeson.
Okay.
And as a huge Rush fan, that was like kind of a cool moment to get to contribute something creatively to one of his projects.
For
So that was kind of
sure.
a fun thing.
Oh, that's amazing. That's cool.
Yeah.
What was your favorite project that you've worked on, sort of like this so far, for an Atmos, whether it's a single or an album?
That's hard.
I'm sure it is.
That's
I'm sorry.
hard, man. Oh, wow.
Choose.
Favorite one. I mean, the Twigs one's up there for sure. Just like the style of music really lent itself to that.
Yep.
Selena, as I mentioned, is a favorite. There's another record label I work with a lot called Vinculum. It's spelled VNCLM.
Okay.
And there's an artist on there named Sadie, spelled Sadye. So go check her stuff out. But most of her Atmos mixes, I mean, both herself and her label, like we've worked enough times now where they just kind of give me carte blanche and tell me to go crazy. So all that stuff where I was saying before, where I really need to treat the stereo mix with kid gloves, I've arrived at a point with them where they're just like, do your thing.
That's awesome.
So, I'm breaking sort of the panning that they had in the stereo, and choosing different imaging, and
Well, obviously
getting
they trust
really,
you.
really wild with special effects.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you hear her music, you realize it makes sense to do that. And that's another special circumstance where, her and, the people that are working with her have taken the time to understand what this is. Like, I mean, a lot of the times when I do these mixes for labels, I'm sending the binaural version, and they check that out, and they're like, great, love it, thanks. But with them, like, they actually took the time to set up like a home theater system in their label office, apparently.
Oh, wow.
They were like sending me emails a couple years ago and being like, hey man, I think we need this HDMI cable, and is there a certain app? And I was like, whoa, you guys are doing it. Wow.
That's awesome.
But it's cool. They get to hear my mixes in full resolution because of that. And
That's
so,
the right way, I think.
I mean, they've really embraced it. They've really embraced it. And so that's a situation where, I get to have a little bit more fun with it. And I think the quality of the product is even better because of it, right?
Yeah, 100%. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I think, when people really do understand it and see how, not just I suppose the limitations of not doing it or doing it, but fully understand how cool you can do this, and the reasons why, as we were talking about, and how much more immersive or how much more feeling you can get from it. That's when the magic happens, and they sort of allow that to be realized, and it's a stronger product every time.
For sure.
I think.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, the mixes I did for Sadie in particular, I'm really proud of those. There's a song, her latest song is called Electricity.
Okay.
Really cool production. Lots of fun with it in Atmos. There's another one of hers that I love called Transcendent.
Okay.
And there's some really cool stuff going on in the bridge of that song that I kind of sort of, met her halfway with the Atmos effects that was, embellishing what she was saying with the music. And yeah, some really fun stuff going on in that.
That's cool. Are these released already?
They are, yeah. Both of those songs are released.
Okay, well, I know what I'm doing right after this.
I got to also do Alex Warren's album.
Yes.
So, and that was a cool experience. Like the first thing I did, one of the first things I did for him was the song "Ordinary," which ended up spending most of the summer at #1 on the Billboard charts. So that was like,
it's huge here too.
That was exciting. Like, I mean, to see that happening for him and it being a song that I got to contribute the immersive mix for, it was really cool. So
that's amazing. My stepdaughter loves that song.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
It's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, that one's really making the rounds. It was really gratifying, to know that something I got to work on is being heard by so many people. So that's really exciting.
100%. And you know what? She comes into this room and goes, "Dan, can you put Atmos on?" And she doesn't quite know what it is. She's 5, but
right.
And my other kids too. Yeah. I've got 4 kids, right? So, all of them come in here and they know this is the dancing room, and it's like, cool. All right, well, you can sit right here and sit in the sweet spot, and then we'll listen to some stuff. And they put on their favorite tracks, and they love it when it's all around. So particularly that song. Oh man, it's so cool.
I got a 3-year-old, and she loves coming in this room.
I bet it's awesome. Just looking around.
I thought becoming a dad was going to make me slow down with this, but I'm actually even more enthusiastic.
That's so
about
awesome.
Audio as I've ever been in some ways.
That's really interesting. Hey, and look, we're probably going to wrap up pretty soon, but I just wanted to ask you particularly about that. So you have one child or more than that?
I got one kid, 3-year-old girl.
Beautiful. Yeah. What's her name?
Her name's Mia.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
I've got 3 boys and then my stepdaughter as well.
Okay.
And I just wanted to ask you specifically about being a dad and doing this stuff. I find that being a dad, just in general, I have never actually asked anyone this, so just this is a new one. But I just thought it was cool since you mentioned that. So being a dad and being in this industry and being part of something that I feel is very important and magical in what it can do. We're talking about, these emotions and these raw feelings and things. I'm wondering how that overlaps for you, and if it's sort of, doing what you do has made you a stronger dad, being connected to emotions in that way, or being a dad has made you a stronger engineer, because it certainly has for me.
Oh man, yeah, that's a deep question. I mean, it's something I do consider a lot. I mean, I've reflected on that one quite a bit, and I don't think I've gotten a chance to talk with a lot of people about this either.
Please.
In a lot of ways, we kind of are expected to compartmentalize the two things. There's your family life and there's your work life. But, if you've ever been around a kid, you know that music just makes them go crazy. Like, kids love music. And being in this field, sometimes you get really, really deep in it and you get lost in the weeds a little bit because, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of late nights.
Yeah.
It's a lot of just listening, and it can get tiring. Having that kid at home, though, who just wants to wake up in the morning and listen to her favorite songs and just dance around like no one's looking, it reinforces just the magical qualities of what music and what sound really is, in ways that really feeds back onto my motivation to do this work in the first place.
That's so it.
It's so special, man. Kids connect with music so honestly. Like, if a melody's good, they'll remember it and sing it back to you.
Yeah.
If it's not, they'll forget it and move on to the next thing.
That's very true.
But if it's really good, they'll just start moving their bodies and going crazy and just, want to have dance parties all day long. And it's so cool to see. And it's made my job feel more important, to be honest with you.
I love that, man. That is so awesome.
It's really cool and really special. And it's being a dad is motivating too. Like, as much as you want to feel like the job of being a parent is just like this top down, here's the lesson you need to learn and let me tell you, like, I'm sure you've tried that and you realize it barely works.
Ever.
Like,
Yeah.
so at the end of the day, what are you left with? You can lead by example. And that's how kids learn the best anyways. They see what you're doing and they want to do that.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying I want my daughter to do this work. Like, she can do whatever she wants with her life, whatever she resonates with and connects with. But I want her to be a hardworking person. I want her to be a driven person. I want her to be a person who sees value in, putting effort into something that you care about and following your passion.
100%.
So if I want her to be that, maybe I should just try to be that myself, and hopefully she can see her dad doing that and follow. So it's motivated me that way as well.
That's absolutely beautiful, dude. And I completely get that. And that's exactly how I approach it as well. Because I think, this is not the easiest of, things to get into or to continue doing even. Like, even just starting a business, or you were saying freelancing or doing this creative work, it's sort of seen as you got to be the best, or it'll never happen for you, or being a singer, being an actor, any of those creative things, it's seen as, oh yeah, dream on. And that's not the world I want to live in. And I feel like we're doing things here because we care about them, and that's really important. Not enough people do it. And I think if I can lead by example for my kids as well, by trying and doing something that's important to me, then I'm doing what's best for them to see that. So what you said was perfect and so beautiful, man.
Yeah.
So good on you.
Yeah. Hey, Dad Club.
Love it. Dad Club forever. Well, thanks so much, man, for today. I think this has been an awesome chat. We've covered so many cool things. Really appreciate your time, man. It's been awesome.
Yeah, this was great. Awesome chat. Thanks so much for having me on, really. And, love the podcast, love the message of it, and keep up the great work, man.
Thank you so much, dude. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, and yeah, we'll definitely follow your work for the future and everything that you're doing. Feel free to send me some links and things like that. I'll chuck them on the description.
Will do.
So everyone can follow along for you as well. And thanks again. Really awesome.
No problem. Thank you.
See you soon, dude.